Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I'm Aaron, and this is the Inclusive Dad podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Karl Kates. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Why don't you just start us off by just telling us a little bit about who you are?
Okay. My name is Karl, as you already realized that. I own a company. It's called DriveWise Academy, where I work with adults and individuals with unique educational requirements to be able to drive, whether that's hand controls or somebody that is autistic or whatever the situation has to be. That's my focus. So when we think about inclusion, I'm like, I don't know how not to be inclusive because that's really all I'm.
That's great. Thank you so much. What is your definition of inclusion?
Well, I thought about it. And again, it's kind of one of those unique things where, and I had to actually look it up and say, okay, what should this be? And what I saw was a way of living, a way of thinking, believing, planning, and acting. It's how you live your life every day and every minute. So it's all about who I am, who I've always been, and just always being there at the right time at the right place.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you said you've always been that way. I mean, is your parents were that way, or how did
My
you
parents were that
just?
way. My brother, he had a health condition where he had a heart murmur, and he had open heart surgery. And growing up, he was my brother. It wasn't, oh, he was somebody that, he had to live in a plastic bubble or anything like that. He was always just my brother. And
Yeah,
then
that.
and then
Go ahead.
going through everybody, people that I met, it was always the same thing. It's like, you're just my friend. It's nothing more than that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, for me, it's my daughter Cecilia. As we call her Cece. She's been diagnosed with cerebral palsy and epilepsy, and I've had people say to me like, "It's so nice that you bring her to the mall or to the fair." And I was like, "She's my daughter. I also bring my son, and you're not like saying good job doing that." So that makes sense to me. She's my daughter. I just treat her like she's my daughter and include her. And but for some people, I guess that's cool that she's out of the house. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. And that's exactly how it should be. I just had a person call me last night and she said, "Do you work with people with dwarfism?" And my first thought was, why would dwarfism affect how you drive? And I didn't say that, but I'm thinking it doesn't make any difference. That somebody has dwarfism or has CP or with the epilepsy, as long as they're 6 months seizure free, there shouldn't be a problem.
So how did you get into the this driving stuff? Because when you had reached out to me, I had never heard of anybody honestly that works with people with disabilities, helping them be able to drive or at least maybe not drive on the road, but at least have that experience. I mean, how did you get into this?
I've been working in special education for the last 30 years that I'm willing to admit to. It might be longer than that, but I'm willing to say, okay, it's been at least 30. Anything other than that. And so from that, I had some free time over the summer and somebody said, "Hey, what do you think about teaching driver's ed?" And I'm like, this would be a great opportunity. I had no idea what I was doing. And what I found was if I used the presence and the things that I learned in special ed, and I applied that to driver's education, everything went seamlessly well. And it was kind of one of those things where you'd meet the student where they are and go from there. One of the biggest fears that kids have and adults would have is they're afraid of hitting something. And the first thing I do is say, okay, make a fist. Usually mom and dad are that up to say, okay, now I want you to go ahead and extend your hand. And as they do that, I have them hit me on the shoulder. I'm like, oh my gosh, you hit somebody. I survived. It's not a problem. Now that we've overcome that, let's move on. And it's those things that it's the opportunity. And in education and with driver's ed, we don't make mistakes. We're creating these educational opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. So somebody suggested you should do driver's training. Like, so when you were doing like the driver's training, do they talk anything about like this stuff? How to, help people with various abilities or, differences? learn how to drive, or is it not really talked about?
When I was in college, one of my best friends, she was in a wheelchair and she had CP. And I worked as her physical therapist. And I said, what would you like to work on? What's your bucket list? And she said, well, I want to be able to learn how to ride a horse, which was a challenge. And she said, I wanted to be able to drive. And me being the silly guy that I'm like, I think we could do this. And she was able to drive this big F-250 Ford truck, and she had no problem. And then I didn't particularly want to ride a horse with her, but I did. And from there, I'm like, okay, this is easy, because she was so invested in the process where it became funny that anytime we would drive, we would actually go, and a lot of times she'd be in her walker, and we would go by the parking spots that were for people with disabilities. And she just kind of smiled. She said, I don't need that. I can walk. I can do this. And that was one of the cool things. And then from there, because everybody knew I had the background in special ed, that I was willing to take the challenge, willing to take the risk. And if I had to do more with a student, I did. One of my students, he was the first person in Iowa with Down syndrome to get their driver's license. Just to be able to make a right turn, it took 27 times. And if you think of how long that would be, who's willing to do that much time? And my thoughts are, if he's willing to do it, he was getting frustrated. He was still going through the process. And when he took his drive test, which was really cool, he passed on the very first try. There was a student that was a traditional student that went before him, had taken the test 3 times. The person after him had taken the test twice, and they had both failed. He passed, and it was really cool for him to say, you know, I passed on the first try. I don't know what's going on with you guys. If you want, I could help you because I now have my license. I passed on the first try. It was one of the coolest things that I was looking at the parents and I was looking at my kid. It was such a proud moment to be able to say, this is so cool. And those are the things that it excites me. I really love when I see somebody blossom where everybody said, oh, you can't do this.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you said he was the first person with Down syndrome to get their license in Iowa. Like, I don't know if I should ask this question, but what year was that roughly? 2 years. Oh, wow. Okay. I was thinking you were gonna say like the 90s or early 2000s, but 2 years ago is kind of crazy. Wow, that's interesting.
The
Yeah.
other thing that I do, and people are really surprised with, is somebody that's been in a wheelchair. When they get into a vehicle like mine, it's set up like it's a giant wheelchair with a joystick. From them to be able to go from the wheelchair into the vehicle and drive, it's like they've been doing it their entire life. It's almost frightening how well they do. And I had one student, he took his drive tests and he got his license 15 years ago, and he hadn't driven since. He got in the car, and as soon as he got in, he knew everything. It took him about 5 minutes, and he was driving like he'd been driving his entire life.
That's crazy. That's so awesome. Yeah, back to the gentleman with Down syndrome. You said it took him 27 times or something like that to do the right hand turn. Like, let's say I'm going to traditional like driver's training. I mean, it's been over 30 years. Yeah, it has been over 30 years since I got my license, so it's been a while. I mean, what would you like in a normal driver's training situation? How would the instructor handle somebody that's having that much difficulty? Would they cut it off after
They
5 times, or like how do they do it?
they would have cut it. Generally, what they do at a traditional driver's ed program in Iowa, it's only 6 hours of behind the wheel training. If somebody's frustrated, and you think about 30 years ago, your traditional driver's ed instructor, he was either probably a football coach, something like that. He would bark orders. He would have his ugly cup of black coffee, and he would yell at the students. As soon as you yell at a student or you yell at me, I'm going to shut down. I'm not going to be able to do that. So with that, it's kind of one of those things you meet the kids or the adults exactly where they need to be.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. He was the social studies teacher at the high school. That was a good guess.
And he Perhaps he might have fallen asleep when he was driving with you.
That is actually possible. That is possible. I mean, just I don't remember that specifically, but just picturing in my head now, he easily could have fallen asleep. I do remember when we were getting on the freeway, he's like, hit the gas, put the coals in the fire. That was his phrase to like get us going fast down the ramp. That was, so yeah, it was, yeah, that's interesting.
Well, I do something very similar. I have the kids follow the white line, and they'll say, follow the white line, follow the white line. Hey, follow the white line. And then I say, whatever vehicle's in front of you that's already there, sometimes we need to slow up or speed up or slow down and follow that rabbit. That's your rabbit. Go ahead and follow your rabbit and make sure that you're following that person. As soon as they go, follow the rabbit, okay, that makes sense. That way they don't have to worry about the distractions. All they're doing is focusing on that one vehicle. They've done the smog method, which is they put their turn signal on, they looked over their shoulder, and they're going to proceed. The other nice thing about my vehicle, which is not traditional, is I have a brake pedal and I have a gas pedal. So if a student's having issues, I can accelerate for them, which makes a big difference. And I'm only about 3%. The people that do driver's education, only about 3% of the instructors will have a vehicle with the gas as well. To me, that's ludicrous to say, okay, I'm only going to have half the capability of being able to control this vehicle.
Yeah, I've never heard of that either. Interesting.
And that's why I say more than just a pretty face and good hair, you know.
There you go. So I mean, this question just came to mind, and I don't know if you have a good answer, but how many people do you think? I mean, it seems like if your student with Down syndrome, it took him that many, tries to get the turn right. Like, how many? There's got to be a lot more people who just maybe don't even attempt to do it because of maybe some anxiety or some fears they have of it, or people who kind of have dropped out because they get in that situation and get yelled at, or they just can't do it in the time frame and just give up. I mean, there's got to be a lot of other people who could drive if given the right attention and given time.
That's my client base. So as soon as we know that somebody's given up, or you've been told, like a traditional student that's neurodivergent, they will go through their between birth to 18, usually having about 10,000 negative comments about them. And the first thing I'd say to them, say, you're in the right spot. I'm not going to yell at you. You're not going to make a mistake in driver's education. We're creating these educational opportunities. So there's no pressure. And the people that have gone through the traditional people that like the social studies teacher that yelled at them, the first thing I do is I work through that process with them. There's a lot of things that I do with the amygdala. I call it the amygdala hijack spiral. So you get that fight or flight response, and the cortisol is being released in the body. Everybody's freaking out. And it's kind of like getting hit by a skunk. If you are you're being a skunk and you're spraying them once, eventually you're going to get out of that scent. There's going to be no more, or the venom of a spider or a snake. As soon as we get through that, we can go from the amygdala to the hypothalamus, and then it's adjusting, and then we can get to the prefrontal cortex where rational thought and capabilities then take on that role. To me, it's a very simple process. However, it's time consuming. The other thing that I do with all my students, especially if somebody is epileptic like your daughter, is I have them have additional protein, because the muscles in the brain, it's all muscle encoding, and your brain, believe it or not, is just a muscle. So if it has the proper resources to be able to function and it's going through and it's being challenged, if it has a good fuel source, it's going to work better. The other thing is, if a student has an issue and they need to drive 15 minutes and take a break, guess what? We're going to drive 15 minutes and take a break. The other thing that I do as we're doing all this is a traditional driver's ed program. They would drive with a partner. Usually they drive an hour maximum. With my students, because we're going through and we're going consistently, they'll do a 3-hour lesson. Is it tiring? Absolutely. Do they give the opportunity to practice and practice and practice? Absolutely. And when they're done at the end of the drive, You know, we've taken a couple breaks. They're tired. They're exhausted. I've had kids that they go home, they say, I'm going to get a snack, I'm going to take a rest, and they don't wake up until the next day because they're exhausted, because it is challenging.
That's very interesting. Is there so you talked about people in wheelchairs as kind of like a joystick. Are there things you can't use to make your car accessible that like the law doesn't allow, or can you pretty much as long as
I
it
can't
drives
think
and
anything.
functions normally? Okay.
The nice thing about this, the other thing is I'm working with people that have ocular disorders. You know, they've got something with the eyes where they can't do bright lights. I've got tinted windows, which they're not exactly legal, but because I'm doing things with people with ocular disabilities, they kind of let it slide. The other thing that I do, if you're having issues with that and you're struggling with that, I have blue lights, or excuse me, blue lenses that they can wear, or they can do an amber sunglasses to be able to do that. If they're struggling and they're getting the auras at night, I've got yellow glasses that they could use as well, because we're looking at the accommodations that they need. It isn't circumnavigating the system at all. It's making sure that they have the things to be successful.
Yeah, it's cool. Because I mean, I think in Minnesota, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the seizure thing, but then you have the vision test. So I don't think there's anything else beside vision on the license. Like I have to have. Well, before when I was younger, I had glasses, but I was able to pass the test without having the glasses on, which I did as long as I could. That way, if I got pulled over and didn't have them on, I figured I wouldn't be in trouble. But now I'm to an age where I have to. I can't see good enough to pass it without them. So, but yeah. So I mean, have you? So somebody goes to like take their test and I mean, what's the reception of like the people that give the test when you have somebody show up in like, maybe in their wheelchair from that type of situation wanting to get their license? Are they receptive to it? Or are they like, what the heck's going
It's
on?
very,
Or
very, there's a lot of places that I will drive past a DOT, DMV website or location, and I'll go to somebody else that's more user friendly. There's, we'll say the capital of Iowa, when they do, well, it's in Ankeny. When they do the drive test, it's the exact same one that they would use for um, the commercial driver. So the truck driver route is the same thing that this kid would be going through. If they're going through that, it's going to be challenging. If we go into a small community, um, we go to Newton. They're awesome. I'll go thumbs up for them. The supervisor, he's worked with special needs students. His mom works in a structured workshop, and he understands what we're going through in the process. He's very candid. He's very thorough. And he actually will go a little bit more extreme to make sure that they're being taken care of and it's beyond reproach. Because if he's issuing the license, he wants to make sure that, hey, if somebody comes back and says, why are you giving this person a license? He could say, they passed, they did this. And my success rate, well, I shouldn't say my success rate, but my student success rate for driver's education is 100%. If you go with a traditional driving school, kind of like what you did with your teacher back about 30 years ago, if they took the same driver test with the DMV, their success rate is less than 50%.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. You need to find like the locations where it's easier route and, the people are more receptive. I mean, I've heard of people around here too that they'll go to different towns to take the test because it's, they figure out the route is easier and different things like that. So that makes sense to me. Yeah. And I was thinking back, I didn't even pass the test the first time because I parked too far away from the curb when I did my parallel parking. So he's got me beat too.
Well, and parallel parking in the state of Iowa, I do teach it. However, it's not a requirement now to get your license.
It's good for me because I at all costs avoid parallel parking. I'll go around the block and see if there's open spots before I will attempt one. So
Well, when I see you in person, I'll give you the lesson. And I can tell you with my students, if they can't parallel park in 3 attempts, there's something wrong and they'll probably never be able to drive. Most people, with the instructions I give, they can do it on the first try or the second try. About 90% on the very first attempt. It's a simple mathematical algorithm. And you hear the oxymoron, it's a simple mathematical algorithm. It does
yeah,
work though.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can do it, and I think I remember how I was taught. It's just I don't like. There's some anxiety for me attached to it. Like you're kind of out there, people are waiting for you, and then I think I just get nervous.
And that's another focus on what I do is I work with a lot of people with anxiety. I had one woman, she hadn't driven in 20 years. She was anxious. She worked with me for 2 lessons, about 6 hours. From there, just going through the process, she was able to drive. She didn't have any problem. It was just that little bit of fine tuning. The other thing is I also do driving assessments. If somebody has Parkinson's disease and mom and dad or the parents are going with their kid, hey, my son's got Parkinson's, or the older person, it's mom or dad, I can then give them the assessment. And rather than failing them and say, okay, this is what we need to do to make sure that you're able to continue to drive. It isn't circumnavigating the system. It's saying, okay, if you're going up to a stop sign and you're rolling through, you're not using your turn signals, let's go ahead and fine tune this so you're able to do that. If you need to get into a smaller vehicle because you're driving this giant SUV, or it's kind of like driving a bus, then we recommend getting a smaller vehicle. And I always communicate, and believe me, I over communicate. They're like, wow, you talk a lot.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, honestly, I feel like I mean, like I said, I took driver's training a long time ago, and I mean now there's roundabouts around here. There's different things that we did not have. We didn't learn about in our classes. So I mean, I feel like that almost is kind of a good thing. Maybe we should once in a while have to take a little knowledge test or have do some kind of assessment just to we all learn habits that are not the best. So we maybe should have to have somebody besides our wife yelling or partner yelling at us to fully stop or use your signal or something.
And it happens.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
other thing that I do is I'm very concise on the information that I give. I also invite the parents to say, hey, why don't you drive with us so you're seeing what I'm seeing, and I'm communicating with your son or daughter how I would want you to do that. Like if we're going to do this as they get into the vehicle, we do what's called the smile method. Sometimes they do the smirk method, but smirking is a little bit different. The smile method is you get in, you store your phone, you put on your seatbelt, and you adjust your seat. That's the S. M is you're checking all your mirrors. And there's lots of different mirrors. And if we need to make adjustments, we do that. I is you're looking inside the vehicle and the instrument cluster. L, you're looking around the vehicle, looking for any abnormalities. Maybe you see the ball that's rolling down the street and you're going, okay, outside there could be kids. And then we're going E, used to be emergency brake, but now we're saying E is for engage. Very simple. We do that multiple times. So every time that you get in the phone, what are you going to do, Aaron? You're going to store your phone in the glove box. No exceptions. No, oh, I'm just going to keep it in my pocket. No, you've got that set up. And then if we're going to do a lane change, we went from smile to smog. The smog method, you think you're going out in California, the marine layer. No, it's smog. You got your signal, put on your turn signal. You check your mirror, you look over your shoulder and you turn your trunk, and then you go. Basic, simple things. You go, oh, this is so easy. It is easy. And as soon as they get that with repetition every single time, they're going to use the smog method. Every single time they're going to use the smile method. And as we're working with people with disabilities, I also work with people with ESL issues. English is not their second language, so I can break down. I could also do, and it goes with sign language too for English as a second language.
Yeah, I love that. What is one tip you can share to help our listeners be more inclusive today? So just something anybody can start doing today to be more inclusive.
Give everybody the opportunity and take those opportunities. When I'm nervous and I get afraid, I'm like, okay, there's something within me that I'm like, I better check this out. There's something that within me I need to challenge. And if I can't do that for myself, how can I do that for somebody else?
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. If there's one thing you hope listeners take away from your story, what would it be?
That they are looking at the individual as a whole and not just a disability or a speech impediment. If you look at everything that they have, everybody's amazing. There's things that I see that they're just awesome, and being able to see how another student thinks about something or another adult, that's cool. I'm like, okay, tell me what you see. Tell me what you think. And the perspective and the education that I get from working with these students is phenomenal. And every single time that I work with a student, I can then take that information and work with it for the next student, to be able to say, okay, I saw what worked with Donnie. I saw what worked with Jay.
Great. Where's the best place everybody can connect with you?
Well, they can call me. They can check out the website, which is drivewiseacademy.org. And the nice thing about that is it's set up for autistic students. So when you look at the site, and I'm sure that you've committed to memory and your daughter has, it's set up for people that are neurodivergent. It makes sense to them. Even the phonetics that they have in there, the color coordination that they have, it translates from the website to the vehicle to their daily life. And when they see that transition, it makes things that much easier. They can also contact me. The neat thing that I have is I've got people coming from all over the country now. They'll come to Iowa. They'll come in for, 3 days, 4 days. They'll get their training and then they can go back. It works really well because what I'm doing, whether it's in Minnesota or it's in Iowa or it's in Dubai, the principles are the same. And we could always say with you, Aaron, with your daughter, and yeah, I'm putting it out there, and I'm putting it out there for your whole podcast, that you're going to have to take your daughter down here when you're visiting your family and have her go through that experience.
I'm ready for the last question. Do you like Spam lunch meat? Yes or no?
I do. And actually, we were going to go with my daughter to the Spam Museum in Minnesota.
You were?
That's on the bucket list. We haven't got there just yet, but it's been on the bucket list now for about 3 years.
Yeah, so I live near Austin, Minnesota, where they make Spam and where the Spam Museum's located. So I've been asking everybody just to see what their answer is. It's kind of fun to see the responses.
And
So yeah, if you ever go there, you have to let me know because we live literally 15 minutes away. So I'll have to meet you there and
that would be awesome.
Check it out. Yeah.
So what's the best response that you've had with Spam?
Well, I don't know if it's the best one, but I had an interview a couple days ago, and that guest had just eaten Spam for breakfast that day, which I've never had anybody who had just eaten it prior to being on the podcast. So that was pretty funny. But there's a lot of people who have, experienced it from going to Hawaii because it's pretty big in Hawaii. So there's lots of people that have gone there and had it there for the first time. So yeah, but it's pretty fun. Yeah, usually it's fast. It's yes or no pretty quickly. There's not a lot of like, let me think about it for a while and get back to you. It's pretty quick.
So is spam endorsing your podcast then?
They should be.
They should. You
Not
should
yet.
hold up that. Hey, spam, it's really good for the drivers. And you can say it's got a lot of protein.
It's true.
And if it works really well, because I'll have to look at the protein content and I'll say, okay, you have to eat spam, holding it up to say this works really well because it's a meat product.
Well, this can says 7 grams per serving
Okay.
of protein.
So there we go.
And
So
it lasts forever, so.
it does. So when I get a case of spam, I'm going to start giving out spam to my students and the families.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it. To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.